I believe in about 2003 or so, I was hired by a restaurant company, a restaurant chain called Spinnaker's, to develop a fast food concept for them. Um, I'd had absolutely no experience in the fast food industry, so I don't know exactly why they chose me to develop this, but they did. And I created a new restaurant concept called Market Wraps, which was wrap type sandwiches um, with smoothies, with power boosts and things. And um, the company, the Market Wraps was actually very successful, and got a lot of good feedback and was really rocking it. I was proud of what we accomplished. But unfortunately, the parent company, Spinnaker's, went out of business, so Market Wraps never got developed beyond the one store that turned into something else entirely. Um, the president of Spinnaker's at the time was named Sam Galbraith. When Spinnaker's went out of business, he went to work as president of a company called Food Vision, which was a content provider for CNN.com on food and wine, various restaurant kind of related subjects. They would provide content to CNN.com. And he contacted me and asked me if I would like to be the wine columnist for CNN.com. Well, you can imagine how enthused I was about being the wine columnist for CNN.com. So I said, well, of course, honestly, I would have paid them to be their wine columnist. But anyway, we signed a contract that I would be the wine columnist for CNN.com. And it stipulated that I would write a weekly wine column and that I would answer questions from their subscribers around the world related to wine. And it also stipulated that I got some amount of money, very small amount of money, for every time someone clicked on my page on the CNN.com website. So I wrote my first column, sent it off. They published it on the website. I don't remember what it was about, but something wine related. And then I started answering questions, and I would get, a few questions a day. It really didn't take up much of my time, but it was fun being able to say I was the wine columnist for CNN.com. The most common questions were, what wine do you recommend with salmon, and what wine do you recommend with spaghetti? People always just said spaghetti, but by which they meant spaghetti with meat sauce. And I would make a wine recommendation. One guy, the two funniest questions I got, one guy asked me if I had a recommendation for a wine that would help him with his issues in the bedroom. And I suggested Chateau Viagra. And then a woman actually in Colombia, South America, emailed me and said she really loved the wine they served at her church. Did I know where she could buy it? Of course, I had no earthly idea where she could buy the wine they served at church. Not sure it was all that likely it was even wine, but I wasn't able to help her very much. So things are fine. I was writing a column every week. After about 3 weeks, Sam emailed me and asked me for a picture of myself to put on the website. And he said in writing in this email that he didn't want just a headshot, a mugshot, that he wanted something with some activity. So my agenda as the wine columnist for CNN.com was that wine was part of a healthy lifestyle. So I got 2 imperials of wine, so very large bottles of wine, and I held them out at arm's length and had my store manager take a picture of me, and I sent it to him. And this is when it started to get weird. He emailed me back and said, I don't know why you took this picture as weird. We just want a mugshot. I had it in writing from him that he didn't want a mugshot, and now he says he does want a mugshot. So I put on a white dress shirt and a red tie and a navy blue blazer, and stood against a white wall and held up a glass of red wine in like a toast kind of motion, and took another picture and sent it off to him. And he said that was better. And then about a week later, he said, you might want to check your website, your pictures up on the website, just so you know we did some cosmetic enhancement. And so I checked, and they'd actually photoshopped someone else's head onto my shoulders. It was a different person's face on. It was my jacket, my shirt, my tie, my arm, my hand, my wine glass, my wine, but a different person's head. That's when I knew things were going to be unusual. That's when I first realized things were going to be unusual in my relationship with food vision. About 3 months into it, he called me and asked me if I could come to Atlanta to be on CNN and make recommendations for some dishes that a famous chef was going to prepare on TV. I asked him who the chef was. He said Daniel Boulud. I said, well, that's perfect. I know Daniel well. I love his food. I'd love to do it. He said, how much would we have to pay you? And I said, well, my sister lives in Atlanta. I can spend the night with her. I guess gasoline and the cost of covering for myself at the store, maybe $300. He said, okay. But then he called me 3 weeks later or 3 days later and said that they didn't have $300 in their budget. So I could just stay home. $300, CNN.com, $300. So anyway, things went on. I was writing a column once a week and answering people's questions about wine, repeatedly the one about the salmon and repeatedly the one about the spaghetti with meat sauce. I'd been doing this for maybe a year, never been paid, never got a check. I had a contract stipulating how much they were supposed to pay me, but they never paid me a dime. But I didn't really care that they hadn't paid me because it was so much fun being the wine columnist for CNN.com. After about a year, I took my ex-wife, my wife at the time, my son, and my mother on a trip to New York City. And when we got back, I wrote a column about the restaurants we'd eaten in and the wines we drunk at the restaurants we'd eaten in. We ate at some nice restaurants. We actually ate at Daniel Boulud's flagship restaurant. And we ate at Circo, Ciro Macchioni's Italian kind of trattoria. We ate at Balthazar, which is one of my favorite restaurants anywhere. But we also went to a Mets game and a Yankees game, and I wrote a corollary column on who has the best hot dog, the Yankees or the Mets. And that was published, and my page on the website went from receiving 20 or 30 clicks a day to receiving thousands of clicks a day because of the Yankees Mets hot dog article. All of a sudden, the clock was spinning. They were starting to owe me more and more and more money because I was getting so many clicks. Not only that, but I kept submitting articles and they didn't post them because they didn't want to remove the article about the hot dogs because it was generating so much traffic. So I started getting sarcastic messages from friends in the wine industry around the world saying, you're the laziest wine columnist in history. You don't ever post any columns. You just have this one that's been running forever. I was submitting an article every week, but they never put them on the website because they didn't want to take the hot dog article down. By the way, I thought the Yankees Stadium hot dog was better than the Mets Stadium hot dog. I'm not sure that's always the case, but on the 2 days that we were there, that was my impression. So anyway, about 2 years into this silly relationship, dysfunctional relationship, at that time, the largest volume search engine in the world was called iWine.com, and it was the largest volume search engine in the world because iWine gave them $1 million cash prize to one of their subscribers every month. So everybody in the world was subscribing to iWine.com to do what we now call Googling. Unbeknownst to me, CNN signed an agreement with iWine.com to be their search engine. And on the first day, I think it was actually November 1st, but on their first day with iWine.com as their search engine, they sent an email to all the iWine.com subscribers saying, hey, check out our wine columnist. You can ask him questions. And when I turned on my computer at 9 o'clock the next morning, I had literally thousands and thousands of questions to answer. And I'd never been paid a dime by Food Vision. The issue was that Food Vision didn't have any money. I wasn't actually working for CNN. I was working for Food Vision, and they couldn't afford to pay me the $300 to go to Atlanta to be on CNN, much less pay me what was now thousands and thousands. It was, I don't know, it was like $75,000 they owed me. So I called Sam. I said, unless you pay me the $75,000 that you owe me right today, I'm not going to even begin to answer all these questions. I'd have to hire somebody to run my store while I spend weeks and weeks and weeks answering all these questions that you didn't even bother to warn me I might receive. And they couldn't pay me. I called my lawyer, and he said, Hoyt, Food Vision doesn't have any money, and you can't sue CNN because you don't actually work for them. Plus, you'd spend more than $75,000 in legal fees suing CNN, and I don't think you'd get a settlement, so you'd be out another $75,000. So just chalk it up to a great experience and a funny story to tell for the rest of your life. So that's what I'm doing. I'm telling that funny, at advice of my counsel, Josh Ayler, I am telling the story about my ridiculous association with Food Vision and at arm's length with CNN.com. And it is a great story, and I look back on that time fondly being the wine columnist for CNN.com. I don't think they actually, I actually told Sam, I hope you treat the next wine columnist more fairly than you've treated me. But I don't think they replaced me. I've never seen another CNN.com wine column. Well, thanks for tuning in to Adventures of a Black Belt Sommelier. That's just another one of my crazy adventures in wine and food and hospitality and restaurants and everything else that I've had so much fun being involved in all these years.